Hey, everybody. Welcome to today's Toronto Real Estate Podcast. In this episode, where we explore the latest in real estate conversations, the dialogues we never thought we'd have with sellers. From debating if now is truly the right time to sell to navigating the nuances of market stats and understanding the implications of buying before selling, we'll unpack it all. These are critical topics in today's changing market, and we aim to shed light on the strategies, risks, and rewards in real time. Whether you're a seller, a buyer, or simply a real estate enthusiast, there's something in this discussion for everyone. We would really appreciate it if you take a moment to like, comment, and subscribe. That would help us out a lot. My name's Ian Busher. I'm a broker with the Fox Marin team. Keep your number handy. This is Corey Marin, in-house hype girl and resident expert listing broker. And of course, a good man to know, Mr. Ralph Fox, our analytical, investor-driven macro picture watcher.
Well, I'm very happy that we're having this discussion because this 120% are the conversations we're having in real time today. So I think our viewership will get a lot out of this conversation. And all three of us have listings on the market right now and sellers in our pipeline and people talking about listing now or in the spring or next summer. So we have some juicy stories to share with you and some anecdotal information as well that I think will help a lot of our viewership out today. So I just wanted to start with one sort of aspect of the market right now, just to give some context and additional color as to what's happening. So we have a lot of inventory on the market right now. So technically speaking, we are in fact in a buyer's market. So there's more inventory than there are buyers to make it a simple economics for you. So I'm going to give you some numbers that might just give you a little extra context, and this will bridge the gap into our conversation dialogue today. So condos are certainly oversupplied on the market. So we have a huge saturation of condos listed effective today. Okay. So on the market, do you guys want to take a guess? How many condos are listed in the GTA right now as per Trub? Want to take a stab?
6,200.
I'll go 5,500. 5,500.
Nice. You guys know your stuff. So right in the middle. So we're at 5,797 condos currently listed as per the Toronto Real Estate Board. Just checked in on these numbers before the call. 820 condos were listed as new listings or contracted last week. So over the last 7 days. And last week, only 164 condos were sold firm last week out of the entire GTA.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
All right.
Mm-hmm.
That's huge. Okay.
I think we're definitely in a buyer's market.
Certainly on the condo side for sure.
Yes.
Now, let's practice the same exercise on the freehold side. All right, Ian, want to take a guess as to how many freeholds are listed in the GTA effective today?
Yeah, I don't think I'm going to be as accurate on this one. 1,900.
Okay. Ralph?
I'm going to go a little lower. I'm going to go 1,700.
All right, both a little off on this one. 2,917.
Whoa. Really?
So just under 3,000 homes on the market right now.
Wow.
So last week, 505 homes were listed as new listings or contracted as new listings last week, and only 164 freehold properties sold firm last week. All right. Safe to say that we are in a buyer's market. Everyone agrees?
Yes, very safe. Unfortunately, a little too safe to say that, but for sure we are.
Well, that's the reason we're having the conversation today.
Yeah.
And that's the reason that we're dedicating this particular podcast to sellers today. What should sellers do? So believe it or not, there are circumstances we are advising homeowners against selling. This is probably one of the first times in the history of our careers where we've had to give that exact advice. So why, boys, might now not be the ideal time for some homeowners to sell? And I think I just gave away a big clue. Ralph.
I think it's really interesting in that we are now in a scenario where something that was always a sure thing, selling a property in Toronto, condo or freehold, was really a sure thing. And now, given the stats that you were talking about and just the slow or low level of activity that we're seeing on properties, it's starting to become more and more obvious that if you're looking to sell, you're probably better off not to sell and to wait till you have more favorable conditions. And so our advice to our clients is, unless for some pressing reason, either financial or personal, you have to sell, it just doesn't make sense to put your property on the market at what may be the historical bottom or soon to be bottom of the Toronto real estate market.
100%. Ian, did you want to add anything to that?
No, it's absolutely the case. I just sold a listing in the last few days, and we talked about it for about a month, myself and these sellers, and went back and forth. And I tried to discourage them and said, if you can, just hold on. Let's see what this looks like next year for you. Ultimately, they decided for one reason or another, no, we just like to unload this property now. And the sale price was a disappointment to them, I think, a little bit. So yeah, the showings were sluggish. Buyers are harder to find. And then even there's concern over if you do get a great price, an appraiser agreeing with you. There's so many levels to it of, why this isn't working right now for sellers.
And in a way, they're really lucky to sell.
Yes.
Period.
Yeah. If they can actually find someone.
Exactly. So there are moments right now where I really feel like it is in the best interest for the seller not to list their property. And there's a couple of reasons. One is obviously the emotional turmoil. So the ups and downs of putting yourself out there, putting your home up for sale. It's a really emotional, difficult thing to do. And there's out-of-pocket expenses as well to prep the property for sale. So upfront costs like painting, repair work, a home inspection, perhaps vacating the property while it's on the market to stay in an Airbnb. Some agents pay for staging, some agents don't pay for staging, but there's a lot of upfront costs, but there is no guarantee that the property is going to sell. And then you're also giving the property a little stigmatism as well by testing the market, listing with all of these other properties, particularly the condo segment, almost 6,000 listings, only not to get traction or not get the price that you want, and then decide to have to veer off in a different direction, take your property off the market, perhaps rent it out, and then relist down the road when the market's velocity is back. So now you've have a little bit of a stigma behind your property for no real reason. So how are we advising our clients in these moments right now? So we've had actually last week, I think we had 3 or 4 calls like this where we actually turned down the opportunity to list a property for these reasons because it was in the best interest for the seller not to list. Ralph, did you want to add any color to that?
If you're thinking of selling right now, you need to ask yourself deeply, why? Is it out of fear? Is it because you're stressed on finances? Is it because you think the market really hasn't changed that much and there won't be that much of an issue to do what has always been something that was considered to be very easy by Toronto standards? And so it's just a very interesting time in that there's so much negativity, there's so much fear, there's so much uncertainty. But I think if you just take a step back and you just remind yourself that the fundamentals that have driven the Toronto real estate market have not changed. Supply, demand, failure in government policies, the green belt, all of the challenges that we have, they are still there. And so what's really driving the issue right now is interest rates. And if you look at what all the big banks are saying, they're projecting that interest rates should start to come down by mid-2024. It's hard to know exactly when that will happen, but we saw last year in January when the Bank of Canada just came out and said, that's it, we're pausing. The market just shot back up. They didn't even do anything. They just changed sentiment by giving certainty. And so while there aren't a lot of active buyers out there, there are a lot of people who would love to buy right now just for various reasons, either financial or fear or whatever it is. They're choosing to sit on the sidelines. And there will come a time where this sentiment will shift based on what comes out of the Bank of Canada. And when that happens, the market will shoot right back up. And is it 3 months? Is it 6 months? Is it a year? It's really difficult for anybody to say. But what we're telling all of our clients is hang on, because when that moment comes, you want to be listing your property at that time. And the spread, the delta, could be literally hundreds of thousands of dollars. And that is even if you can sell in this environment. And so we're really telling all of our people who need to sell or are considering selling to really take a good hard look at why, because you don't want to put your property on the market and 3 months later the bank pauses or reduces rates. And then all of a sudden you're out a couple $100,000
Oh my
because you
gosh,
didn't have
no.
the
Oh.
patience to see all of this through. Hang on is what we're telling all of our clients. And when you get on the other side of this, there will be a really good return for those who are patient and understanding what the fundamentals that are driving all of this are now and 3 to 5 years from now.
And I totally agree with everything, obviously. But
Obviously.
I want to add one more thing that I think is interesting about the conversations that we had last week is that most of the sellers that we spoke to probably are in their second or third home and looking to make a move. And what they're seeing is opportunity on the buy side to upgrade to something bigger and better. So they're like, okay, this is a great time to be a buyer because there isn't as much competition. There's more inventory out there than ever before. I might be able to scoop up a deal, whatever that means in Toronto. And they're like, this is my opportunity to make that move. But for me to make that move, I have to sell first. So what do you think? And we're like, yeah, it sounds like a great time to buy, but we cannot guarantee your sale. So these are the exact conversations we're having. And we've always notoriously told our clients generally, and there have been a few exceptions like COVID and some other random things like global pandemics that we've had to deal with. Besides those things, most of the time, we've always encouraged our clients that you need to buy first before you sell. Because the buy side has been the challenging side because of competition, because of bully offers, because of people overpaying and all the reasons we've talked about on former podcasts. And then we're like, buy first, try to get a longer closing date, and we'll sell after because the sale is going to be super easy. Mm-hmm. Now we're like, no. What you need to do is you need to sell first if you can, get a decent price if you can, and then go off shopping after that. Like we've just totally reverse engineered what we always do, mm-hmm. Right?
100%.
The ultimate strategy, and we've worked with several clients recently to bring this into play, is if you can take your property, rent it out, pull out equity, or just rent it out, straight rent it out, and purchase a property and wait to a better environment to sell your property, but taking advantage as a buyer in a buyer's market of acquiring a property. And when the tide comes back up, you'll have more equity in your principal. You'll be able to refinance at a lower rate, and you'll have your former principal, which is now an investment property, and you'll be able to sell that at a much higher price while currently having somebody there either paying your costs or certainly paying a significant amount of your costs. And that is, if it's possible to do, because not everybody can do that, but that is the winning strategy in a market like this if you're looking to make a move.
And have those conversations with your mortgage broker and with your bank. And if you're not getting the answers or the creative ideas from them, then search out somebody else that will have those creative conversations with you, because banks and mortgage brokers are working with homeowners right now. And there's more out there than people know in terms of packages and a way and workarounds. So it's definitely worth picking up the phone and having those conversations, or set up a meeting in person and just crunch the numbers and see what you can make work. Because this actually might be an opportunity for you and you just haven't really fleshed out all the details. And we always say this, like sometimes when the chips are really down, those are our biggest opportunities to grow and expand when everyone else is contracting. So it's almost like, ooh, how can I spin this into an amazing opportunity for myself? And I think this might be one, despite it being a little sticky and scary and feel gross. Those times when you get through those things is usually where you reap the biggest rewards down the line. And you're like, oh my gosh, I'm so happy I took that leap of faith. So weathering the storm and holding onto your property might be the wisest decision for long-term gains. And I love that. So what might be contributing to some of our listings, some of our Fox Marin listings, and to all of the other thousands of listings out there receiving no showings at all? And if you don't get showings, you don't get offers. Is this because just people aren't looking? Like, what's going on?
I think it's a combination of things. I think the interest rates and affordability are driving it for sure, with the, a six plus rate plus a 2% stress test added on top in order to qualify, is just pricing people out, or it's making people at least want to sit on the sidelines. I think there's a lot of geopolitical distractions right now with two hot wars going on, and a lot of concern about inflation and a potential recession. I think people are just being more conservative. And I think that is causing a lot of buyers or potential buyers to just take a wait and see attitude. And as we all know, when you're in a buyer's market, that is the best time to be a buyer. So there's a little bit of a dichotomy between the two. But I think if you're in a position to become a buyer or to be a buyer, now is such a great time. I think, though, there is a real impact on the amount of activity because of all the negativity and affordability right now.
And there's just so much to see.
Yeah.
So it's amazing to me. Like, we've had listings in the past where, I am not joking, viewers, we've had 100 book showings in a week. And we'll have had I don't even know the numbers on the public open house, 120 people through on the open house, so many people that it feels like you're throwing a party, like you're sweating, trying to manage everybody at the same time. Yeah. So we're used to that. And now we're like, we have 3 showings booked this week. And then that's it. Like crickets. You're not even getting feedback from the buyer agents that have seen the property, because they're like, well, I've got another 4,500 options for my clients. Look, I really don't need to rendezvous with the listing agent and kiss up to them or give them feedback or develop rapport or relationship, because it really doesn't matter because we have just so much selection out there. The ratios just are not working out for us to be able to get showings unless the seller is super open-minded to pricing at a really aggressive price. And then, as we've always talked about, presenting the property at its highest and best. But it's really price that's going to help move that product along more so than anything else, because I think buyers right now know that they have the upper hand.
Can I add as well that there are some slight exceptions to really, really remarkable, unique properties as well.
Yes.
So freehold only. Maybe not freehold only. I shouldn't even qualify it with that. But if you've got something that is really outstanding, very, I'll use the term unique again, but one of a kind, the buyers may just rally. You may actually be able to have a successful bidding war for that. And we're seeing that at properties that are right downtown and truly exceptional.
About what that means in terms of a unique property, just so that the viewers understand.
I think probably a great example would be Victorians. Classic Victorians in good condition or very, very tastefully renovated will continue to do very well. And I liken that to almost like classic cars. They don't make them anymore. We could try to make them again. We would get it wrong. It just wouldn't work. It wouldn't be the same. So I would say that the classic Victorian in the right neighborhood, right? The right school district, the right tasteful improvements, or something that's, a great blank canvas will do incredibly, incredibly well still.
And Ian, in terms of bidding, when those properties are selling though, and they do have more activity, are you seeing crazy prices above list? Or are you seeing in terms of prices, how, even though there's lots of offers and activity, in a real strong seller's market, you'll see properties and you'll be like, I can't believe somebody paid $300,000, not more than it's listed, but more than it's worth. I think now we're not seeing that as much, but what are you seeing?
I agree with you. I think in the heights of the market, you'd see 25 offers on one of those places, and somebody would pay $500,000 more than the ask. And now we're seeing maybe up to 6, maybe up to half a dozen offers on a property like that, and even the most aggressive one still seems somewhat cautious. Right? There is no more throw another $100,000 at it because the interest rates are so low that really makes no difference to me. Every dollar put towards improving your offer really counts for everybody now.
And do you see it being a winning strategy in any situation in the condo segment to list really low and then have an offer date? Not just list low or list like healthily low. That's a word. Is healthily even a word? And then have an offer like, well, like let's just use this as an example. I'm just like tossing it out there. I don't have an answer for you, but let's just say something's worth 800,000. What if you listed the property for, I don't know, 599 and had an offer date? Do you think that would
No,
Yeah.
there's
If I had to guess, and that was an average condo in an average building with 2 or 3 other listings that were listed responsibly at $800,000 offers anytime, the only thing that's going to elicit is a bunch of people maybe kicking
lowballing?
tires at about
Yes.
675, right?
Yes.
Saying,
Yeah.
hey, why are you doing it this way? Can I pick it up for this?
Mhm.
Because I'm looking at these other ones, which I could easily go get for 800,000 today. So why am I waiting and competing for something? I'm actually following a live example right now of an agent
Ooh.
who advertises on the radio that if he doesn't sell your property, he'll buy it.
Oh,
Um,
yes.
One of those guys. And he's got a listing for a condo deep in the East End in Scarborough along Eglinton. There's 2 similar units in the buildings nearby, both listed for $499 offers anytime. He's listed for $349, and he's taking offers tomorrow night or Wednesday night. So I'm watching that kind of just as a bit of a study to see what happens if you take that approach that you just mentioned, Corey. And I feel like it might work, but it might sell for $425 when really everyone's viewing the value as about $500,000.
Yeah. I think
Or
you're
it'll be
totally
back
right.
out the next day at $500,000 and join the others in the wait.
I'm just like, how do you get these condos to stand out in the crowd?
Yeah, I'm seeing when agents are like properties that are selling condos, when they're holding off, they're typically priced right around what their value is. So everybody is clear, and the intent is well, if we get people to compete, maybe we'll squeeze out an extra $10,000 or $15,000 because it's got this great exposure that never really comes up, or something that makes that condo a little different or a little unique in a good building. But when we do see those type of scenarios that end up selling, generally they're priced right along value, and plus or minus 5%, they'll sell lower or higher.
So significant price reductions, while crappy and shitty for the sellers, can be a necessary strategy in these market conditions. So how do significant price reductions impact the seller's return and then the buyer's perception?
It's interesting because I think the buyer's perception if we're talking specifically, I guess, about condos too, in particular, if a buyer sees one of these units go for a significant reduction, that expectation will be then translated to every other unit in the building. As far as sellers, was the question the seller's profit margin, their takeaway?
Yeah, like it really, I mean, as soon as you start slicing away on the list price, obviously it's going to affect the bottom line for the
Mhm.
seller.
Mm-hmm.
But then every time you slice away from the list price, you're probably even slicing away from the offer price. Because right now, the likelihood of getting more than
Oh,
list
yeah.
is slim to none unless you end up in multiples for whatever reason. So we've had this conversation. So say a seller's target price is $1 million. No, let's do something lower. Say the seller's target price is 700,000. And so we're like, okay, let's list for 725, knowing that we're going to have to negotiate down because we're in a buyer's market and there's a lot of inventory out there and there's a lot of selection. So the property does not sell or is not getting showings, and we're not getting offers. And we're like, well, it's time to do a price reduction. And we're like, it's probably in the seller's best interest now to list the property for under 700,000 to try to get that buyer pool in there. So now we're having to reduce now to 699. Let's just use this as an example. And now buyers are going to even come in lower likely than the list price because, again, no one's going to overpay unless they're in multiples. And so now the seller whose target goal was 700 is now getting offers for 680. So it just keeps so I think that the buyer's perception every time there is a price reduction means there's more opportunity for them to bargain and negotiate and make a deal. And then every time there's a price reduction for the seller, they're like losing less plus some. Does that make sense?
Yes, I see where you're going with that. Yeah. You've knocked 25 off. And then there's also kind of that, are they starting to get desperate? They've knocked it down. They've knocked it down again. Do they have to sell? Should I go in there with 600,000 and see what kind of deal I can get? And that is harmful too.
This is where, and we're like in this sort of transitional period right now from like being like a pretty healthy back end of the summer to a slower start to the year to like now we've got all this inventory. And so when we're coaching our clients, anyone who has to sell for whatever reason, and we do have inventory on the market right now, it's just better off the top to come out like really strong with your list price and not be expecting the high end of your range and just come in lower because you're going to have to do it anyways.
Yeah. Start fighting, right? Start aggressive.
Exactly.
Start by fighting. I said in a meeting that you weren't there for, Corey, that the buyers are basically looking at paying a price 3 months ahead and the sellers are looking at 3 months ago. And that's the problem we're having right now is sellers are basically saying, but historically this. And buyers are looking ahead and saying, yeah, but it also looks like this. and we just get caught in the middle of it, right?
And and I think that's so true, Ian. And it's what happens when a market is transitioning. So that's kind of normal in terms of perceptions. But I think the other thing that we're really, really trying to impress upon seller clients or potential seller clients is another factor that makes this time period unique by Toronto real estate standards is that time is not on your side. And so we've seen sellers who price their properties high sometimes, not always, but sometimes over the course of a month or 2 months or 3 months, somebody finally comes in and gives them their numbers because the market has gone up 10% month over month or something stupid like that. So there are times when the market is really strong that an unrealistic, or some might even call them a greedy seller, can actually do okay. But the opposite is true if you're a seller in a buyer's market. Time is not on your side. The longer in a market like this you have your property out, the greater the proper probability is that the market is still moving downwards. And it's one of the things that we are telling our clients, our sellers and our buyers, is that it's our belief and position that things will have to get worse before they get better. And so if that is in fact the case, which is what seems to be playing out, it would indicate if you're a seller and you have to sell, you want to get sold as fast as possible and is not in your favor to have your property sitting on the market because you're trying to catch the market as it continues to move down.
That is such good advice. It really is.
The hit that you take today might be less of a hit than you might take in 3 months' time.
1 million
or no hit at all.
Or no hit at all, and you just can't sell.
Yeah.
So what advice are we giving to clients who decide that they are going to buy first and sell second? What risks should they be aware of? What are you saying to these people? Even though we're advising the other way around, I mean, we can only do so much. What advice are we giving them?
We want them to go in eyes wide open, right? With the possibility
like super
that
wide open.
the possibility of, so sort of their possible sale range, eyes, really like held open, like Clockwork Orange open. Yes.
Clockwork Orange.
All options get put on the table. What if we have to reduce your price by $50,000, $100,000, $150,000 to get you sold? And what other options do we have? Is there a lifeline that can be thrown out by a family member, a friend? And can you potentially find a way to finance keeping that property and renting it until the market has turned and we can confidently try selling it again? Ralph, anything to add to that?
Yeah, whenever I look at making a business decision or advise somebody on making a business decision, the first thing you want to look at is what is the worst case scenario. And right now, the worst case scenario can look pretty bad. And it's really important that somebody understands the ramifications of that. So we would always, of course, encourage them to talk to their mortgage broker, to talk to their financial advisor, to talk to their psychiatrist, so that they can fully feel balanced in that whole with trying to make a decision in a very uncertain market, knowing that their downside, both financially and mentally and spiritually, is covered, because you can end up in a world of hurt if you are really, flying around on a shoestring budget and you're buying with a leap of faith in the belief that you're going to sell your generic condo at Fort York for a record-breaking sale price, because it's not going to happen. And so you really need to ask the questions, well, what if, what if, what if, what if, what if? And in most instances, if you can't proceed under the belief that you know that you can buy a property and not sell your property, you could end up getting in hot water. And if it's something you have to do, then put your property on the market to sell first and see what happens. Although, as we've already discussed, you're far better off waiting.
And the other point to add to that is if you do end up having to rent it out for whatever reason, it's really important to get an up-to-date rental evaluation, because we talked about this on our last podcast, that the rental market's significantly slowing down and there is a lot of inventory on the market on the rental side. And because of that, and a whole bunch of different factors, including seasonality being one of them, is you probably won't get the top end of the range for your rental either. So you need to work within those boundary lines too. And you might not be able to rent it out in a day. It might take you a month to rent it out, and then another month after that before the tenant moves in. And so then you'll have a vacancy for up to 60 or 90 days where you're carrying possibly two properties at the same time. And can you deal with that? And do you have the cash for that? And you have to sort all this out in advance. So please, please do that. Like, honestly, this is the stuff that keeps us up at night, and we worry about all of this for our clients. Like, please don't buy something before you sell, or like whatever it might be. So sort out all of these things, speak to all the experts and speak to your team, and make sure that you have a spreadsheet. And then, like Ian said, clockwork orange, eyes wide open.
Yeah. Know every possible way that you could move if you need to.
Yes.
And Ralph, I just want to go back to you having clients that have psychiatrists. I thought that was part of our role. I thought we were actually therapists and psychiatrists for our clients.
We're part-time psychiatrists. Sometimes for this type of consultation, you need to call in the pros.
It's true.
But like, it really is interesting because we're having heavy conversations.
Difficult conversations.
Either, you need to change your life plans. You need to put off retirement. You need to do a price reduction. You need to do another price reduction and a relist. You need to rent out your property. You can't sell it. It's tough. It's tough. It's a real tough time right now to be in this business. And anybody who thinks this business is easy should come work with us for a month, because you're dealing with people and their futures and their dreams and their aspirations. And oftentimes now the news can be really disappointing or frustrating, and you have to be the one to deliver it because you really want to protect them from making a mistake.
One of our selling clients, she's selling in the spring of next year. Thank you very much for listening to our advice. And she was saying that she was listening to our podcast about us being therapists. And she's like, it's so true. You guys are like therapists. And she was reciting things from it. I'm like, we are, right? We're having that conversation right now. So I like the fact that she related back to that. I'm like, people get it. They get it. So in this saturated market that we're in right now, what is the best strategy for sellers if they do need to list? What is the best strategy? Is it undercutting on price? Is it like what should sellers be doing, or just does it depend on their asset?
Well, I'd say ubiquitously hire the best possible representation. In a market like this, you definitely see a flight to quality where the good agents are still remaining very busy, and the agents who aren't adding value really are just being discarded as they should be. So I think making sure you have the best possible representation is the number one piece to it. And I think secondly is you have to be really realistic with your pricing. And it's common that most people think that their home is worth more than it actually is. But in a market like this, it's oftentimes a lot more. And that is part of a lot less. Thank you, Corey. And that is part of the reason why we're telling people not to sell. So I think really understanding what your property is worth. And the other thing to say is that when we come up with a valuation of a property, we're looking at similar properties that have sold recently. So sometimes we're looking at similar properties that sold 2 or 3 months ago, or even 2 weeks ago, and the market has changed in that time, and in this instance, in the wrong direction, downwardly. So in some instances, it's really difficult to say, how much your condo is worth when in the last 2 weeks, even though something similar sold at X price, but in the last 2 weeks, there's another 1,500 units on the market.
Mm-hmm.
So that really has an effect. It makes it a downward pressure effect that makes it very difficult to use past data to evaluate your property. So you really need to be prepared that, if people aren't coming to see it, that's one thing, but it's also a recognition from the market saying you might be overpriced.
Yeah, this is the first time that I feel like we've talked to sellers so much about the amount of inventory and sell through, and that it's not particularly about their property specifically, that there's just anything wrong with their property. And like, really, is it that overpriced? Probably not, but we're not seeing pen to paper. We're just competing with so much that's out there. And so when we have these challenging conversations or we're doing these price reductions or we're talking about a relist, we're always talking about inventory and sell through now, which is definitely a new conversation that we're having with sellers, just to give them context that it's not necessarily personal. It's just that we're competing with 5,700 other options out there. And we need to make sure that we see you through to the finish line. Ian, did you want to add anything to that?
I did. I was also going to throw out that Ralph mentioned, having great representation and a pro agent that's giving you good advice. And I'm watching some of our peers, amazing agents doing their consistent work and great jobs. One of the things that I find people want to retract, everyone's trying to save right now. Don't try to save on the prep of your property. Right? If your place needs a paint job, get the paint job, right? If your place needs a new floor in the front hall, do that, right? It's that $10,000, $20,000 investment in these little improvements that you didn't make for yourself. Now is the time to invest there and put yourself over the top as far as readiness. So
Yes.
I think that's another one is people are like, do I really need X, Y, and Z? And
yeah,
if you're being advised to do that by somebody who really knows what they're doing, yeah, you do. You probably should be doing it.
Yeah, you need to get across the finish line.
Because you got to do that before you know that you're sold. But, you don't get a second chance to make a first impression.
I love that.
Well, the key word is invest. There's no better investment than in yourself or into your own property.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Even if you don't sell, that improvement is not going anywhere.
It's not.
I'm just like thinking off the top of my head because we've actually had this conversation as well. What do you think about properties where cash might be tight and the option to invest in advance would be challenging? What do you think of the sold as is, whereas right now? So selling the property and giving the opportunity for the buyer to create whatever they want in the space. Are we in a market where buyers are looking for that type of product right now? I don't really feel like we are.
No, and I think when you look at freehold, the cost to renovate is so expensive and the hassles to renovate is a lot when somebody can, times and everything else where they can just see something down the street that doesn't require work. So in a hot market where people don't care if there's mold in the basement and the house is borderline condemned, they're just trying to get whatever they can get and they'll figure it out later. But in a market like this where there is inventory, things are moving slower, the fear of missing out is not there. And the cost to carry an empty property, the cost to renovate a property, the cost of hiring they are continuing to go up. And so I think if you have a home, it's really important to get it to a point where it's move-in ready and ideally where when somebody walks in, that that the property is being shown at its highest and best.
We live in the annex. I'm so surprised that probably every third home is being renovated right now, still, even with the economy the way it is. And I'm just like, what's going to happen? Are these people renovating it for their principal residence? Are they renovating it to sell in the future? Are they splitting this house into a multiplex? Like, what's the story behind all these renovations? Like every third
And where
house.
is that money coming from?
Yes.
You should go ask Corey.
I need to go
Yeah, do a neighborhood poll.
I really want to know. every third house though. And like, it's
Yeah.
just all day, every day, something is, there's new stonework being put in, new windows, a new roof. And I'm just like, what is happening? Where is
It's the
this
same
cash?
here. It's the same in my neighborhood. There's 3 row houses all attached to each other. All 3 of them have different signs out front. The contractors, one of them's gutted, underpinned. The one next has a very expensive, fancy contractor. It's just mind-boggling. Where is this money coming from?
I want to know.
Is that the parents?
Me too. Like, is this the bank
Right?
of mom and dad? Like, I'm looking around for signs. So,
Yeah.
viewers, if you are one of these people, please in the comments section, tell me who you are. I want to know your story. Maybe we should do a whole thing on this. Who's renovating their places right now? And tell us where you're getting the money from and why are you doing this?
And where are you living while it's happening?
Yes, I want to know. Like, it's not inexpensive to buy a detached house in the annex. Like, how, and then to buy that and then to renovate it, it's just blowing my mind. So, any color you can add to that, viewers, I would like to know your inside scoop. Please do tell. I want the skinny, I want the full tea on that. And the last part of this whole thing that I want to talk to you both about today is the reintroduction of the conditional on home selling clause. So this definitely suggests a shift towards this buyer's market that we're in. And this is something many agents have never seen, let alone use successfully. So this is a very common clause or condition, I should call it, that was used in the 70s and the 80s. However, we have a feeling this might be making a short-term comeback, adding another layer of complexity to transactions. But this could be a possible lifeline for some buyers and a potential nightmare for sellers. Ralph, can you just provide our viewership today a bit more context about what that condition means and how that might be put to use?
Yeah, for sure. So basically, if you're a buyer, you would be submitting an offer which, presuming that all other aspects of the offer are acceptable, in addition to all of those aspects, there is a condition saying that this is only a binding transaction if the purchaser sells their own home within a specified time period. I've only used this once, and it's funny because up until about a year ago, we'd have some older agents or some parents saying, well, why don't we do, and you just laugh. You'd be like, this is Toronto. What year are you talking about? But other than that one time last year, and it was right around Christmas, I've never really used that. And I think we could see it again as people are trying to get more creative on how to transact in this environment while protecting their downside. I think the concern is if you're a seller and a buyer presented you with an offer like this, you are now tied into them. And who knows what good of a job they're doing, how overpriced they are. Like, there are so many variables that are out of your control, and you're now tied in to their success, which is not really a situation that you want to be in ever as a seller. And so there may be a short time period where this type of creativity comes back and we start dusting up that old clause and reintroduce it in order to get transactions done and people be able to move on with their lives. But it is something that I would be very concerned about if somebody presented one of our sellers with that condition. And it's not just a simple thing as some buyers might think is, we'll just slap it in and see what happens. I mean, the amount of time and energy, emotional, spiritual, and financial it takes to acquire a property and then turn around and try to sell your property and not be successful, it could be a pretty awful 3, 4, 5 months for pretty much everybody involved in a market where there are no assurances that anything is going to happen.
So I have a couple questions about this. So we did use that clause and we had never used it before. And we even consulted with our real estate lawyer because we're like, is this the right wording for this clause? Because we've never had to use it before. I just want to make sure. How long of a time period in general is the buyer giving to the seller to sell their property? Is it 2 weeks? Is it 30 days? Is it 60 days? Like, what does that look like?
I would think around 60 days would be sort of the norm. But again, that's something that can be negotiated with by by both parties.
And I think it would be helpful. And I know that we did this, which was smart because it's us. So we were good about this.
Obviously. Again, I said obviously twice.
I think I know what you're going to say too.
Well, we showcased our capabilities to the sellers to say, we know how to sell properties, and this is the quality of our presentation. This is our website. This is the property that we're going to be listing. This is the price range. Like, we sold them on our ability to sell the property in selling that condition in the offer, which was really smart. And then the other thing that happened is that we turned that property around really quickly and also shared the listing with the sellers to be like, this is how great the property looks. Here's the video, here's the pictures, here's the description. Like, we know what we're doing. And then we happened to sell it in one day.
Amazing.
The very first day. So, I mean, it all worked out. But I think selling us and selling the client and our ability to sell it helped sell the clause that sold the offer, if that makes sense.
Absolutely. This ties back into the quality of your representation is huge, right?
Yes.
This is not a clause that's going to fly if you're using your niece and this is the first deal she's ever, or nephew, or,
Totally. The Uber driver that took you to the bar
your
last
Uber
night.
driver, your part-time agent that just started and has no reputation at all. And the other thing I was going to say is, if you feel like you think you might want to start employing this clause, start getting that property ready before you've even found what you want to make an offer on. Because if it's that much further along, the shorter that request could be, and the more likely it might be accepted if you keep it short.
Hallelujah. Great advice. This is such a good conversation, and it's so timely that we're having it right now, because literally we're having these conversations like 5 times a day. And last week, I don't know if it was the BOC announcement that came out on Wednesday, and there was like this little bit of like shift in the market, and there was a bit of vibe happening. It just seemed like our phones and emails blew up, and then all of a sudden everybody wanted to make a move all of a sudden. And I think it was a lot of people being like, ooh, amazing time for me to move up the food chain on the property ladder, but I got to sell first. Do you think you can sell my $2 million renovated property next week? And we're like, probably not. Like, I don't think we can sell it. And so we've been having these conversations so much over the last, 5, 6, 7 days that I think this is a very, very timely conversation. And I hope our viewers are getting a lot of juicy nuggets out of this. Is there anything else you want to add to this before we conclude?
I just think it's so interesting. Like, you've got 35, 40 years of combined real estate experience here, and none of us have ever seen anything like this. So it's definitely interesting times. Yeah, interesting times for sure. Certainly stressful. A lot of tough conversations. But again, like, the most important thing to understand is this too shall pass. And it's just a question of how best to get from here to there, because better days are around the corner.
They always are.
From your lips to God's ears, as they say. Thanks for joining us, everybody. As we wrap up today's interesting discussion on the unanticipated conversations with real estate sellers, it's evident that there is no easy answer. These conversations remind us to stay informed, proactive, and strategic. If you found value in today's episode, please hit that subscribe button and share it with others who might benefit. Your feedback and engagement are crucial to this community. Thanks for joining us. And until next time, keep making informed decisions, my friends. Corey, what do you like to remind our viewers to do?
Oh, I like to remind them to contact us because we're super nice and knowledgeable and good at what we do.
Absolutely. Ralph, how would you like to send us off, buddy?
Please be sure to smash that subscribe button down below or hit that like. And if you have any comments that are super, super, super constructive, we'd absolutely love to hear from you.
Thank you so much, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Peace out.